So it seems like everybody's been playing old school RuneScape lately with a ton of new players coming and joining the game. Recently, I had some friends ask me if I would be down to start a group Ironman with them. And of course, how could I refuse? The new player experience in old school RuneScape just gets better and better. And I was so excited to get in there, start working on an efficient order, blast my way through the early game, get as many unlocks as I can, help out the group. And that's exactly what I didn't do. Here's the thing: for the last couple of months, I've been playing a Taskman where my current objective is randomly selected from a list of collection logs. And that leads to some pretty interesting orders in which you actually go and get your items, and definitely a bit of suboptimal gameplay. So, for the first time in like half a year, I could literally do anything I wanted and I had no idea where to even begin. I was like a kid entering Wonka's chocolate factory and being told I could eat anything I wanted, and I had no idea where to even start. So I started off by training some fishing. And for most of this video, the progress will be shown through RuneLight screenshots. Unfortunately, I wasn't really sure if I would be making any videos on this, or honestly, I wasn't even sure if the group would last the end of the weekend when I started. And hopefully, future ones will have a lot more actual recordings of gameplay and big achievements there. And so I got my fishing all the way up to level 35. I really wanted to, send some bosses with the boys. And what better way to start than by doing Temperos, right? Now, at this point, I still wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So I just wanted to try out a bunch of different skills and kind of see, what I was feeling at the moment. And so I got my woodcutting to level 30 and started doing willows. Unfortunately, I was getting absolutely wrecked by the Dark Wizards there. I almost died on several occasions, and we did choose to start off as a hardcore group Ironman, just to have fun with the first few lives. In fact, day one, about an hour after we started, one of our friends already died to Dark Wizards outside of Varrock. So we were already going in 4 out of 5 lives, and I didn't want to be the second person to die to a Dark Wizard that week. So I went over to Port Sarum, right next to Draenor, and just started attacking seagulls. These guys have a max hit of 0, so I had no risk of dying. I could pretty much train strength to 10 and attack to 10 completely for free. They say you use 10% of your brain, and I can guarantee you I was using way less than that while grinding these seagulls. Now, I wanted to start working on my magic just to unlock some of the teleports to kind of get around the map a little easier. But before I started doing any magic training, I figured maybe we could do a little bit of rune crafting as well. So after completing rune mysteries and getting an air talisman, I leveled up my rune crafting to 10 just to stock up a little bit on air runes so I could get going with magic. Now, for magic training, I chose to do Ankus in the Stronghold of Security. There's a pretty cool safe spot in one of the southmost rooms where you can actually mage them without them ever really attacking. So while the monster's combat level was significantly higher than mine, I could basically, with no risk, go ahead and fight these and start training my magic. Most importantly, however, Ankus have a weakness to air spells, which is all I really had at the time. This meant that with just a staff of air for unlimited air runes, I guess I didn't really need the air runes that I made from rune crafting, huh? And a bunch of mind runes, I could just cast Airstrike, the very first spell, and I would be getting 40% more damage and 40% more accuracy from attacking these mobs. Elemental weakness was a system introduced last year to old school RuneScape that made certain monsters weak to different elements. And this has really kind of rejuvenated the like standard spell book with your fire, water, air, and earth spells to be a lot more useful in a lot of different areas where you're getting a massive damage boost for using the correct style. And in addition, the spells actually will scale up in damage to the highest level. So Wind Strike will do the same damage as Fire Strike once you've actually unlocked level 13 for Fire Strike. Now, at this point, I'd still been messing around with a bunch of different things. I still had no idea what I really wanted to focus on or what I wanted to work on. How did I want to contribute to the group? And then Varlamore Part 3 came out. This wrapped up a year-long storyline, introduced a brand new endgame boss, and most importantly, it brought the crab. See, the thing about old school RuneScape is that updates aren't just for the end game. It's not just for players who are maxed. Sure, there's a new end game boss that feels like you're doing Millennia from Elden Ring, but the entire zone of Varlamore feels so suited for early and mid game players that it's not this, end game area that you can only access once you've already beaten all the other early zones. In fact, you can get there surprisingly quick. Just takes this one quest, Children of the Sun. Took me about 5 minutes in Varrock, and I had access to Varlamore. I could fly over there and experience all of the new content that was available. So as soon as the servers went live, I took my character straight to the new boss, the gemstone crab. Training your combat at crabs is one of the most iconic parts of old school RuneScape. However, you're often dealing with other people who might be competing for the same spots. And the gemstone crab eliminated all that by creating a massive crab that everybody could fight all at once. No competition. You're just sitting there, essentially AFK combat training with a giant target dummy. It doesn't even have health. You can just whack on it for 10 minutes and then it will move and you just keep going. You keep fighting the next one. And so, armed with a steel scimitar, a training shield, and barely 300 coins to my name, I went and started training on the crab. Now, I don't know exactly how this works, but I believe the top 16 people that did damage to the crab, or I heard some people say it's the first 16 people that attack the boss. I'm not really sure. Those 16 people get the opportunity to actually mine the crab when it's defeated. And this actually will give you 3 random gems. And so, even though I was just training my combat skills, I was still contributing to the group by getting a whole bunch of uncut gems. I know that some people were using them for crafting and making some jewelry. I know one of my friends needed it for Fairy Tale Part 1. They needed a uncut diamond, and I was lucky enough to have one by then. I even snagged a dragonstone down the line, which is pretty damn rare. And so for the next couple of days, all I really did was sit here and attack the crab. I didn't have the best gear, but it didn't really matter. I didn't really need it. I could just sit here and train my stats. Luckily, someone in my group was generous enough to get me a mithril scimitar, an addy scimitar, and a rune scimitar as well. So I was able to actually use those while leveling up. Very kind of them to throw me one while I was just sitting there training. And in just a couple days, I had hit level 60 strength, level 60 attack, level 60 hit points. So I was feeling a lot safer compared to getting hit by those dark wizards just a couple days ago. Next up, I wanted to train my magic here as well. You don't actually have to only do melee training at the crab, you can do range or magic as well. So I figured I would grab my staff and go to level 40 magic as well. And before wrapping it up here, I decided to push my strength to level 70. That way I had level 60 attack, 70 strength, a combined level of 130 between my attack and my strength, all done at the crab. Now, my stats were looking great, but I was still missing some direction. What did I want to do next? And thanks to the collection log master plugin, I got my first task to work on, getting a piece of graceful. Graceful is one of the most popular outfits in old school RuneScape, as the set will not only reduce your weight so that your run energy drains slower, but it will also restore your run energy a bit faster. So it's really popular for questing and pretty much any time you're running around. Or in my case, at level 1 agility, walking around, which is what I was doing for most of the time. So naturally, it made sense to go ahead and start training my agility at the Drainer course. I even got my first Mark of Grace. However, I would need 260 of these for the entire graceful set. So I was a long, long way from finishing this up. I got to level 20 agility at Drainer and switched over to the Alcarid course instead. And I did about 15 laps over there and got to level 25 agility before I got bored. And yeah, that's right. I went back to the crab to keep training strength. Although I did get a lamp and put that into agility, which got me to level 26. The first of many lamps, I'm sure, that will be dumped into that skill. Next, I wanted to continue with some questing. Early game quests give a ton of great rewards that can really help jumpstart your early game account and skip over some of the more tedious grinds that you'll have to do early. First off, I wanted to complete X marks the spot, as this gave me the ability to receive clue scroll boxes. Normally, you would only be able to hold one clue of each tier: beginner, easy, medium, etc. But by completing X marks the spot, you would instead be able to stack them up to 2. So that meant 2 beginner clue scrolls sitting in my bank left untouched for weeks. I quickly popped into the Varrock Museum to complete the Natural History quiz, as this would give me level 9 Slayer and level 9 Hunter, a very nice head start to those skills. And in addition, I completed Daddy's Home so that I could get myself a player-owned house. Having a player owned house and leveling your construction can be incredibly beneficial as you can unlock so many quality of life features, teleports, a prayer altar, all sorts of stuff inside of your player owned house. For now, this would just function as a quick teleport to Remington. I did have 40 magic, so I could teleport to my house. And ideally, with the group Ironman, I would have everybody's house in a different place, as you can also teleport to your group's houses as well. Next, I completed Tree Gnome Village for some early game attack experience, the fight arena for some thieving, and I got about halfway through the Grand Tree before I got bored and went back to the crab. Pretty much any time I just wanted to AFK something, I would come back here and just leave myself to keep training. Now that my combat stats were in order, I could go back and keep training woodcutting. Fortunately, this spot was a little bit lonely, so I decided to go back to Drainer Village, back to the Willows, and this time I wasn't so scared of those dark wizards. Woodcutting has been changed in old school RuneScape with the forestry update, where now instead of everybody fighting for the same tree and you wanting to be isolated away from other people, trees are basically on a set timer. So a willow tree will last 30 seconds after somebody starts chopping it, whereas something like a magic tree will last for 4 minutes. It doesn't actually matter how many people are chopping that tree, it doesn't speed that up. In fact, the more people hitting the same tree, the better. You get an invisible boost to your woodcutting level up to plus 10 with 10 players. And if leaks taught me anything, it's always lit at Drainer Willows. Conveniently, one of my teammates had actually already reached level 60 woodcutting, and they were able to get me a rune axe so that when I was 41 woodcutting, I could already swap to that. Now, my woodcutting was great, but my fire making was pretty neglected. So I swapped off of willows to oaks and just started burning every single log I got. Along with forestry are bonfires, where instead of manually lighting up every single log, you could just add them to the same fire. It's a little bit slower, but it's way more AFK. And instead of doing, lines of oak, I could just put them all into one fire and get all of my levels right there. Another lamp means another agility level. At level 30 fire making, I swapped back to willows once again. So I kept this up all the way until woodcutting level 55 and fire making level 50. Only 49 more levels to go, so I was already halfway done. And one last thing while I'm here, I decided to start working on my fletching. And being the team player that I am, I made headless arrows using normal logs and feathers. That way I could give that to my group and then they could put the arrowheads on them and get that like extra experience. And with those stats out of the way, I was ready to take on the gemstone crab. Yeah, that's right. I went back to the gemstone crab. Now, unfortunately, during my woodcutting break, I had put the rune scimitar back in the group storage, and it was no longer there when I got back here. Basically, instead of wasting a bunch of time grinding rune scimitars for everybody, I just asked somebody if they could just throw in some rune maces from the Champions Guild. A few years ago, the rune mace had been buffed to match the same speed as the rune scimitar. So while it was a little bit weaker, it wasn't that bad. And I figured that the extra prayer bonus from the rune mace would actually come in handy. I had gotten level 4 prayer, so I could use the level 1 prayer burst of strength. So armed with a rune mace and my trusty shield, I continued laying waste to the crab. I even completed some random events and got some fun cosmetic items, which they look cool, but they don't really do anything. So I continued all the way until level 80 strength, which I thought would be a good milestone to wrap it up for now. Fighting the crab had been a lot of fun, but outside of the gems, I felt like I wasn't really contributing, and I still didn't really know what my role or what my place in the group would be. In fact, I haven't really talked about my group much at all. That'll be in the next episode where I bring the group part of Group Ironman in and talk about some of the early decision making and some of the early routes that people had been going on, because I can guarantee you theirs were a lot different than mine. I hope you guys like this first episode of the Group Ironman series, and I can't wait to bring you episode 2 very soon.